Welcome back. We've got another Locked On NFL Insider Report. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Isaiah Stanback joining me once again for his inside scoop. We had a wild weekend in the playoffs that we talked about, but now we got some offseason coaching news. Sean Payton announcing he's stepping. Some people are calling it retirement. Some people are calling it stepping away, whatever wording you want to use. He's leaving the Saints after 15 seasons. He's been there for quite a while. Why is this happening right now? And where did this kind of come from, Isaiah?
Drew Brees. Drew Brees is the reason. Drew Brees obviously shut it down last year and then left this organization without a sure number one quarterback. And he went through a lot this season. They obviously brought in Jameis Winston, and he got hurt earlier in the year. They had to revert to Taysom Hill, who they gave a big boy contract to, and everybody is now questioning why Sean Payton gave him that contract if he was simply going to walk away. And then they ended up with Trevor Siemian, ultimately finishing out 9-8 this year, and simply no hope or direction in terms of his roster and any hope of the future. So I think that along with the Drew Brees retirement really put a lot of pressure on him. And obviously, being a leader of this organization, he had to answer questions as to what direction are we going. And I'm not sure he had those answers.
He's been there for a minute, though. So to say, obviously Drew Brees was going to retire at some point, is this something maybe that coach was thinking about for the past couple of years? Because if you're thinking long term, you got to think, hey, maybe have this, if you're Bill Belichick, you got plans in place for 10 years ahead. But maybe if you're not all the way in, this is how it gets to this point.
Yeah, I feel like this was like the you can't say unforeseen future, but because you knew it was coming, but it's one of those things that you didn't want to identify as a reality. So Drew Brees stepping away really just magnified that position and how much of a cornerstone to that organization, as if those who didn't already think that already. This was major, and they really left a gaping hole. Obviously, with Michael Thomas stepping away for the year, obviously with injuries and opting out not to play the rest of the year, they really didn't have a lot of offense nor defense to carry this team through. They did the best they could. Obviously, Sean Payton stepped away after the season and spent some time with his family, and ultimately came back to the decision of retiring / stepping away from the game. And now all of a sudden, all this speculation now arises again because of the history of what coaches have done here in the NFL. Most recently, you think about Bruce Arians. And Bruce Arians back in 2017, he stepped down as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals just to come back a little bit over a year later to become the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then, a couple years later, he goes out and wins the Super Bowl. So everybody now has their antennas up as to what is the next move for Sean Payton. Is this a real retirement / stepping away, or is he really plotting for the future in a better situation?
So that being said, maybe he'll retire, maybe he won't, but where could he possibly end up if he were to be lured back in?
Yeah, so the curveball that I'm going to throw out there is I believe that he has his antennas up and looking at Dallas. You think about the aspect of Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones' situation that's going on there. Yeah, Jerry Jones asked just the other day, what's the vision going forward? Is Mike McCarthy the head coach? And he was very non-committal. He didn't make any definite statements in terms of Mike McCarthy's security going forward. Even though he's under contract, we understand in the NFL, ownership can obviously relieve the coaches of their duties at any point in time, having to pay out their contracts. So he's been very non-committal. And you think about the aspect that Sean Payton lives in Dallas. So there's that big question as well. There's always been something brewing whenever they hit the coaching positions present themselves in Dallas. There's that connection there. So I think that's an opportunity. Or Kellen Moore. Say Kellen Moore leaves Dallas and now Mike McCarthy gets bumped down to the offensive coordinator position because people have been asking, why isn't Mike McCarthy calling the plays? Well, here's an opportunity for that to happen. And then Sean Payton can step in that role. Whether that happens this year, whether he's positioned himself for next year, nobody knows. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of what ifs, but obviously those questions have begun.
If there's anybody that's going to pull the trigger on that, Jerry Jones is certainly not afraid to make that move. As far as the Saints go, what are they getting if they take over this team? I mean, obviously Taysom Hill has that weird contract. Maybe you can touch on that. Are they able to get out of that and get their own guy, or are they kind of stuck with him?
Yeah, I think they're kind of stuck with him. They gave that man a lot of money. Right now, he's under a 4-year contract extension that he signed, and it's anywhere from $40 million up to $95 million if he becomes the foregoing quarterback and starter in New Orleans. So the contract is kind of sketchy in a sense in terms of convoluted, I should say. He plays receiver, he plays running back, he plays quarterback. So, but if he becomes a starter, this contract is worth up to $95 million. But a lot of people in New Orleans is asking the question, why did you give him this big contract knowing that he's not your guy or the guy therefore for the organization. But, to your point, there's a lot of money tied up here. Their salary cap is not in the best situation. When you look at some of the other teams, this historically has been a great organization. But when you start looking at those finances, what can I do with this team? How can I rebuild this organization? This doesn't seem like to be one of the best landing spots just from the financial situation they're in.
It's definitely not go in there and you're going to be immediately successful with the way the situation is. So this might be something where someone wants to come in, kind of clean house, for the lack of a better word, and kind of rebuild it themselves. So this is one of now 9 openings. This is a lot of different spots for coaches this year. Where do you kind of put it on the list of desirable jobs?
It's really difficult. I mean, I want to say just smack dab in the middle, because that New Orleans takes care of their coaches. They're all about family. They're all about the community. They do a great job of that. Obviously, dealing with Hurricane Katrina and all the history that comes with that, and just the whole community and city of New Orleans. However, again, when I bring up that financial aspect of it and the salary cap, how are you positioning yourself? Alvin Kamara, Mike Thomas, you have a couple pieces there, but then who's going to throw them the ball? Can you grab a quarterback out of free agency to bring them in? I don't think this is a situation where either one of those veteran superstars on that offensive side of the ball want to deal with a rebuilding phase in terms of a new quarterback, nor do they have the patience for that. So I think they have to bring in not only a great coach, but they also have to look for a quarterback that can come in now and try to somewhat resemble what Drew Brees did.
Well, remains to be seen whether Peyton actually stays retired or if he comes back at some point. And the Saints are obviously going to have a lot of work ahead trying to get somebody in there to figure out how to move forward after having the same coach for 15 seasons. Oof. So, sheesh, I know. Isaiah, thank you very much. I'm Kainani. This has been another edition of Locked On NFL.